story I bring has the following summary. My sister is my father's illegitimate child. She has nothing, yet the crown prince fell in love with her. He even broke off our engagement without hesitation, forcing my mother to accept her as the legitimate daughter of the Lu Manor. My mother refused this humiliation, kowtowing and hitting her head on the palace steps until blood covered her face. That night, my sister jumped into the river to end her life. Later, when the crown prince ascended to the throne as emperor, he was so blinded that he killed me and burned my mother alive. When I opened my eyes again, I had returned to the moment when the crown prince was kneeling before the emperor, begging to marry my sister. I pushed her forward with utmost sincerity. If your highness the crown prince and my sister truly love each other, why doesn't your majesty grant them their wish? I want to see if without me, can they live happily together in this life. I wish you all an enjoyable listening experience. 1 month after Marcus Wu ascended to the throne, he used the excuse that the elder princess had harmed the crown prince and colluded with enemies to sell out the country. He arrested over 1,000 people from the Wellington Lu Manor and threw them into prison. I was skinned, my tendons cut, my eyes gouged out, then thrown like a rag before the Wellington Lu Manor gates. He tied my mother to a red, hot copper pillar and set fire to the Wellington Lu Manor. The heat surged through the copper pillar, burning my mother's back. I opened my empty eye sockets, watching my mother as blood mixed with tears flowed in 2 streams. Marcus Wu. He grabbed my hair. Do you know why I left your tongue? Of course, it's so you can scream loudly for your wicked mother to hear. Maybe if you scream to my satisfaction, I'll spare your mother. I once asked him why he treated me this way. He said, if not for you and your wicked mother, how could my Grace have died? If she killed my Grace, naturally I must let her taste the pain of losing her most beloved. Over the years, he had patiently cultivated his power, using our engagement to gradually erode my mother's influence at court, all to avenge Grace Lu. But what did Grace's death have to do with us? It was his own good father, the late emperor himself, who ordered the shadow guards to deal with her, staging it to look like suicide. All because she was the daughter of a concubine. Marrying her wouldn't let him exploit my mother's power. I explained this to him, but he still didn't believe me. Marcus Wu, like a demon, stabbed a knife into my stomach. The pain tore at my sanity. I gritted my teeth, the taste of blood spreading in my mouth. Scream. Why won't you scream? I won't scream. If I scream, mother will be heartbroken. He pushed the knife deeper, twisting the handle inside. Though my clothes were already filthy beyond endurance, they were stained with fresh red. My mother's eyes bulged, wanting to burst. It's all my fault. Whatever you want, directed at me. Release Victoria. Release her. Did you ever release Grace? He looked at my mother with hatred, cut off my arm with 1 stroke, then severed my legs with another. This strike is for your abuse of power that killed Grace. This strike is to sacrifice to Grace's spirit in heaven. This final strike, Marcus stabbed the knife into my chest. He raised my heart high and threw it before my mother. Amidst the raging fire, my mother cried until her voice was hoarse and exhausted, looking crazed. My consciousness gradually dissolved. Mother, don't cry. If there's a next life. If there's a next life. When I opened my eyes, I was standing in the Weiyang Palace. Marcus was kneeling before the emperor and empress, speaking firmly word by word, just to beg permission to marry Grace Lu, my father's illegitimate daughter, as his consort. Everything began from him. If he wanted to be with Grace, I would fulfill this fate. I wanted to see, without my mother's power, how could he possibly ascend to the supreme throne? I suddenly pushed Grace forward with utmost sincerity. If your highness the crown prince and my sister truly love each other, why doesn't your majesty grant them their wish? Countless gasps echoed through the great hall. Even Crown Prince Marcus Wu, kneeling on the ground, stared at me in shock. Victoria, have you gone mad? Marcus spoke but suddenly stopped. I glanced at him and said calmly, when people seek something, why fear life and death? Better to be Mandarin ducks than seek immortality. If your highness already has someone in his heart, why should I break apart others' fate? I turned to the emperor and bowed. This subject humbly requests your majesty to decree the annulment of the engagement between this subject and his highness the crown prince. No. Sister, do you mean it? 2 voices rang out simultaneously. The first was Grace's, full of panic. The second was Marcus's, revealing obvious joy. Grace, ignoring Marcus's attempts to stop her, knelt before me, tears streaming down. I humbly beg sister to take back those words. Sister is the eldest daughter of the Wellington Lou Manor. Only sister and His Highness are a perfect match. That His Highness has feelings for Grace is Grace's fortune, but Grace knows her lowly status and dares not steal sister's engagement. Grace originally had a delicate, pitiful appearance. Now with tearful eyes, she appeared even more coldly beautiful yet strong. In my previous life, I didn't interact much with her, but I knew well that she was far from as pure as she appeared. This move of retreating one step to advance two had made Marcus unhesitatingly help her up, his eyes full of emotion and heartache. Her current status may be lowly, but she and Victoria are both daughters of the Lou family. There's no reason she should suffer outside while Victoria lives comfortably in the manor as the eldest daughter. The Emperor's expression hardened, clearly recognizing the deeper meaning when I proposed breaking the engagement. However, Marcus had been blinded by beauty, losing his rationality. He immediately kowtowed 3 times to plead with the Emperor. I humbly request Father Emperor to allow me to bring Grace back to the Lou family to acknowledge her ancestry. In my previous life, when Marcus demanded to break our engagement, I refused. The Empress, out of love for her son, personally requested the decree. This life, I took the initiative to propose it, and the one kneeling to request the decree was Marcus himself. The Emperor grabbed the jade scepter and without a word, struck it directly on Marcus's head. I see you've truly been bewitched by beauty and lost your mind. The heavy jade scepter crashed down, blood flowing profusely from his forehead. The Empress, seeing her son suffer, was both panicked and furious, hurriedly ordering physicians. Your Majesty, this consort and your Majesty only have one son, Marcus. Since childhood Marcus has been understanding and never asked for anything. Now his only wish is to marry the one he loves. Has your Majesty forgotten how we overcame difficulties to be together? If your Majesty doesn't agree, this consort will remove her phoenix crown and kneel here without rising. The current emperor had been on the throne for 18 years. The Empress was someone he met during a tour of Jiangnan when he was still crown prince, just an ordinary laundry girl. They fell in love at first sight, and upon returning, he married her as crown princess. 2 years after marriage, the emperor remained devoted to her alone, never taking concubines or selecting beauties, becoming a legendary tale. But because the empress only bore one son, Marcus Wu, she valued him above everything else. With the empress's protection from childhood, Marcus had been arrogant and domineering. Relying on his status as crown prince with the empress backing him up, he often bullied commoners and caused trouble. There was no evil deed he wouldn't do. Yet before my mother and me, he was as docile as a little rabbit. I once thought his different treatment of us compared to others was out of respect for my mother being the most noble elder princess of Great Ung, who had once shielded the emperor with her own body. I was personally designated by the emperor to be his future crown princess. I once believed his docility was out of respect for us. But only at death did I understand that docility was all fake. He harbored deep resentment toward my mother. Every achievement my mother made at court only highlighted the empress's uselessness in the eyes of the world. Every time I was praised by people, it only emphasized his inadequacy. Grace was the only one who truly moved his heart. He didn't want to live his whole life in my and mother's shadow. So for the first time, he defied the emperor's will. However, after I married him, my mother and I wholeheartedly helped him, working tirelessly for him at court, never once betraying or wronging him. Yet in the end, I met with family destruction. He was a white-eyed wolf that could never be tamed. He still had blood on his face. My mother coldly rejected his request. Father knelt down, guaranteeing he would give a satisfactory explanation to the emperor and empress, then without hesitation pulled Grace, who was still reluctant to leave, away with us. The fault is mine, all mine. I let Grace be exposed to the light, making the crown prince fall for her. If she doesn't please you, I'll buy a house outside to support her there. Mother turned and slapped him hard without hesitation. Anger transformed into undisguisable pain. Richard Liu. Do you remember what you said to me on our wedding night? When the Wellington Lou Manor fell into decline, my mother married my father. On their wedding night, father once promised mother that they would be one couple for one lifetime, that having her in this life was enough. But just 3 years after marriage, he betrayed her, even raising the child he had with his childhood sweetheart outside for 15 years. It's my fault, but Grace is innocent. Grace followed behind him, tears falling drop by drop onto the blue stone floor. She choked out, "Princess, please forgive father. As long as you forgive father, Grace is willing to leave forever and never appear before you again." After speaking, she turned to me. "Princess Victoria, I won't compete with you for the crown prince anymore. Please, for the sake of 18 years as father and daughter, persuade the princess to help." As if these words could prove her concession and sincerity. But her divisive tactics were truly too clumsy. I quickly pulled Mother onto the carriage before she could rage. In the carriage, Mother was so angry she repeatedly slammed a table, the sound ringing out sharply. "Even your own daughter wants to speak for your father. How can you feel the crown prince is truly worthy of becoming the future son of heaven?" Mother was stunned for a long while, then coldly said, "What does that have to do with him betraying me?" I shook my head and told Mother what happened in the previous life, how Grace died, what Marcus did to her, how he treated me, and how he killed Mother right before my eyes. Mother was stunned for a long time, unable to speak. After a period of silence, she trembled and said, "Victoria, you've suffered so much. It's all Mother's fault for not protecting you in the previous life." I smiled slightly, my nose stinging. Mother has done her best. It was I who wasn't careful enough, who didn't see through his heart. The matter of Grace and Marcus was all arranged by father behind the scenes. That's enough to prove he's long harbored ill intentions toward you. If they're already wolves with dog hearts, why not let Grace become the knife that stabs back at them? Mother declared she had completely given up on father, deciding to hand over all household arrangements for me to handle. Father didn't dare have any objections to Mother's words, only quietly stopping me after dinner. "Victoria, father has always known you're an understanding child. Grace is kind and simple-minded, with no great ambitions. Rest assured, she won't compete with you for anything. When she marries out, father will also be at ease. After 100 years, everything in this Wellington Manor will be yours." I laughed coldly inside. If she were truly as father said, how could she win over Marcus? But since it was father's words, implying that a daughter like me should comply. That evening, I ordered people to prepare a small courtyard for Grace. This courtyard was the farthest from where I lived, originally used to store rare treasures, so it was decorated extremely luxuriously. Father rarely praised. "Grace, why don't you quickly thank your sister?" Grace gently bowed to me, her lowered lashes just covering the greed and jealousy in her eyes. "Grace thanks sister for graciously taking me in. When father finds a suitable courtyard, I'll immediately move out and not disturb sister anymore." Father immediately frowned. "What are you saying? Victoria is your sister, how can you use the word disturb?" The two sang in harmony, clearly waiting for me to ask her to stay. In my previous life, I once felt sympathy, thinking parents' faults shouldn't implicate children, but the premise of shouldn't implicate children is that benefits also shouldn't go to children. Father brought her to provoke me right to my face. How could I spare her? I wouldn't spare anyone. I softened my voice. "Mother is in a bad mood today. She must be hoping father will comfort her. Leave things here to me. Father should go to mother first." Father couldn't say more, only instructing Grace a few words before reluctantly leaving. I also left, but several of my nannies stayed behind. When the nannies arranged the bedding, they couldn't stop exclaiming, "Oh my, this is the cloud velvet brocade quilt that His Majesty had transported thousands of miles from Anha Kingdom to bestow upon the princess when she came of age. If we accidentally damage this imperial gift, I'm afraid the Lord will inevitably be blamed before His Majesty." When preparing hot water for washing, the nannies exclaimed again, This wooden tub is made from 1,000-year golden agar wood, extremely precious." When His Highness the Crown Prince personally went to inspect the floods in southern Shu, he gathered the entire region but only obtained this one piece of precious wood. Upon returning, he immediately gifted it to our princess. The princess couldn't bear to use it, so it's been kept until now. When burning incense, the nannies continued, "This incense was specially made by the renowned Master Zhao for the princess when she was born. I heard that afterward, Master Zhao declared he would never make incense again. Don't underestimate this small piece of incense, its value could equal an entire family fortune." Thus the brocade quilt was replaced with ordinary cotton. The wooden tub was changed to bamboo, and the precious incense was replaced with the cheapest bamboo leaf incense. When everything was complete, the nannies gathered and whispered, "I heard that for a woman, His Highness the Crown Prince was struck on the head by His Majesty, and is now under house arrest. The Empress has removed her phoenix hairpin and knelt before the imperial study, begging His Majesty to forgive him. I really don't know which enchantress made the Crown Prince abandon our wonderful princess, and even caused a rift with His Majesty. If I find out who it is, I'll definitely scratch her face." Enough, don't gossip about imperial family matters. Be careful or you'll lose your life." Grace's face alternated between green and white. The wooden comb in her hand had been squeezed until cracks appeared, yet she still forced a strained smile. "You nannies have worked hard. Why don't you rest first? I'll call you if I need anything." The nannies responded in unison and left, closing the door. I heard that when they left, Grace's expression was truly spectacular. I just curled my lips in a sneer. This was only the beginning. The nannies devotedly served Grace every day, but always accidentally mentioned palace affairs. Grace worried about Marcus so much she couldn't eat, depressed all day. Marcus had been on hunger strike for 7 days. The Empress cried day and night, causing this matter to spread throughout the court and rear palace. A crown prince causing such chaos over a woman, disturbing the entire court's peace. It truly made people sigh and shake their heads. Many ministers submitted memorials condemning Marcus, using harsh words demanding the emperor strictly punish the crown prince. However, emperor who valued emotions, faced with the empress's tears over several days and Marcus fainting multiple times, finally softened. He decreed that father should accept Grace as his daughter, officially entering her into the family genealogy. Counting the time, the day the emperor decreed Grace's death wasn't far off. I led nearly 100 shadow guards with mother's command token to the elder princess's manor. About 50 were secretly arranged around Grace, taking shifts protecting her 12 hours without rest. The remainder, based on my memories, were dispersed around the river where Grace once drowned. However, very strangely, although Marcus had been released from house arrest, and the emperor had decreed Grace's name be entered into the genealogy, he still hadn't made a move on Grace. Could my actions have been too obvious, making the emperor suspicious of my purpose? No. The day I went to the elder princess's manor, I used the excuse of handling accounts for mother, not alerting anyone. Moreover, mother's shadow guards were comparable to the emperor's imperial guards. No matter how many people I deployed to protect Grace, it definitely couldn't leave traces. I must have overlooked something. Half a month later, the empress brought Marcus to find mother to play chess. But how could someone from a laundry girl background like the empress know chess? It was just an excuse to bring Marcus to see Grace. As soon as they arrived at the manor, Marcus couldn't hold back and immediately left us to run straight to Grace. The empress covered her mouth with an affectionate expression. This child Marcus, once he has a wife, he forgets his mother. At this time, the emperor still hadn't agreed to annul my engagement with Marcus. My title as future crown princess remained. Yet the empress blatantly called Grace her daughter-in-law before mother and me, clearly insulting us. That girl Grace is both beautiful and gentle, truly a good match for our Marcus. What does this palace need strong women for? Family enterprise is men's business. Women just need to stay home and do well in helping husbands and teaching children. Don't you think so, imperial sister? My heart tightened. My mother was the most noble elder princess of Great Ung. When the late emperor was alive, she went to battlefields with him to kill enemies. After the late emperor passed, she still maintained a firm position at court. What she hated most was hearing others say what women should be like, what men should be like. If anyone dared lecture her about being a woman in front of her, even the emperor would be refuted until he couldn't lift his head. I immediately realized the empress was deliberately provoking mother. She could be angry, could refute, but not now. I quickly stepped forward, discreetly grasping her hand through the sleeve covering. The empress's words are indeed very correct. Victoria humbly receives your teaching. I bowed without revealing any dissatisfaction, my voice gentle to the point no one could find fault. But inside, undercurrents surged. Empress, you think you've won. Mother understood me better than anyone. With just one glance, she recognized my thoughts. After just a few breaths, the gloom on her face immediately dissipated, replaced by an amiable smile. When she turned to invite the empress, a few days ago, the manor just received some Cloud River silk. Would Imperial sister-in-law like to come see? The Empress forced a smile, her face somewhat stiff. No need. What silk doesn't the palace have? Not lacking those few bolts. Imperial sister-in-law saying so is wrong. Palace silk is palace silk, but this is my heartfelt intention. I hope Imperial sister-in-law will give Mother face. Mother pretended to be intimate, linking arms with the Empress as if they were good sisters. Before leaving, she glanced at me. I let out a slight sigh, half reassured. Afterward, I hurried back to the main courtyard. The main courtyard and Grace's small courtyard were very close. Just by leaning against the wall, I could clearly hear Marcus and Grace's conversation. Your Highness, seeing you under such pressure, Grace's heart aches to death. Grace truly hates being powerless, unable to help you with anything. Unlike sister who can support you in everything. Nonsense. How can you compare to her? Don't you understand? You are my heart's precious treasure. Everything your Highness does, Grace understands. Actually, you don't need to go such lengths for Grace. Grace's status is lowly, not worthy of your suffering. If you're not worthy, then who is? Seeing you like this breaks my heart. Every day I can't swallow food, only hoping to hold you soon. Fortunately you came today. Then hold me, hold to your heart's content. When you marry me, I'll let you hold me every day. The sweet voice was enough to enchant anyone who heard it. But I had no mind to care anymore. Just before the Empress came here, Mother told me that Father had given half of his assets to Grace. This meant that in his heart, Grace had become more important than Mother and me. A hereditary lord of Wellington Loo Manor actually wanted to suppress the elder princess. This was something Mother absolutely couldn't accept, and neither could I. That evening, Grace led a group of servants surging to my main courtyard. Unlike her usual weak appearance, she showed arrogance, standing among the people with satisfaction. She pointed at the servants behind her, speaking haughtily. These servants were all rewarded to me by the Empress and His Highness the Crown Prince. Fearing they might make noise and disturb sister, I brought them here to apologize to sister first. If they really disturb you in the future, I hope sister will be magnanimous and forgive. After speaking, she sighed, looking straight at me with frank eyes. People inside are indeed different from those outside. With just one look from their master, they understand their master's wishes. Sister understands what I mean, right? Oh, I almost forgot, the Empress and His Highness seem to have never rewarded servants to sister. She pretended to regret continuing her provocation. How could the Empress and His Highness, being supreme beings, casually assign people to serve others? Only those with noble status receive such treatment. I followed her words, looking at the group of servants behind her. Indeed, they were people who usually served the Empress and Crown Prince. Yet Grace dared to be this arrogant over just a few servants. The Empress and Marcus's servants. It wasn't that they didn't want to give them to me, but that my mother didn't deign to accept them. I ordered people to drive Grace and the servants out with chairs, then used my foot to step hard on her fair wrist. Noble status. Grace screamed in pain, crying and cursing. I'll tell the Crown Prince. My mood instantly improved. I used my blood-stained shoe tip to lift her chin, coldly saying, "You look quite pretty, but have no brain." Grace scrambled up messily, her face disabled, trembling as she led people away. What do you mean? I mean, besides clinging to men, what else can you do? Are men your heaven and earth? Can't you live without them? Even a dog being insulted knows to bark a few times in resistance. But you, are your limbs, your fangs just for show. You only know to redden your eyes and cry, saying, "I'll tell the Crown Prince." Tell him, then what? Have him beat me, kill me. Don't be ridiculous. My mother is the elder princess of Great Ung, the only female official at court, one person above 10,000 below, and also his aunt. And I'm his aunt's daughter. If he touches me for you, do you think those censors will let it rest? Just one person spitting could drown him. Or you could ask him to reward you with more servants. But look at the servants behind you. I throw you, kick you, and they only know to kneel on the ground trembling, begging me to be merciful. Why? Because even though they're from the palace, once they leave the palace they're still just servants. But in this manner, I am the master. What are you so proud of? What do you feel superior about? Go ahead and tell the Crown Prince, but what's the point? I never saw Grace as an opponent. To me, she only deserved contempt, like how those above look at those below. But there's a saying about capsizing in the gutter, and Grace was that gutter. I wouldn't let the tragedy of my previous life repeat. So I lowered myself to make her understand what was noble, what was lowly. I was noble. She was lowly. Grace hugged her hand and left silently with a gloomy expression. Yes, just a useless person, how laughable. When Marcus and the Empress went to such lengths to support her, first requesting a decree for father to enter her name in the genealogy, then arranging people to assist her. Especially the Empress's boastful appearance before mother, as if the imperial family had just received some great accomplishment. But so what? As long as there was no decree annulling our engagement and making her crown princess, she couldn't do anything to me. As long as she couldn't do anything to me, I would keep her crushed beneath my feet. But why hadn't the decree been issued yet? Why? A thought suddenly flashed through my mind, making me jolt awake. So that was it. A few days later, the Empress held an autumn banquet to view flowers. I originally didn't intend to pay attention to Grace, but she deliberately provoked me on the 9 Curves corridor. She stubbornly wanted to show off the Emperor's green jade bracelet the Empress had rewarded her in front of me. This is the Emperor's green jade bracelet that the Empress personally gifted. I heard this bracelet was originally meant to be given to the crown princess on her wedding day, but now it's given to me. Sister won't be angry, will she? Look at this cloud jade, look at this color, it's truly lovable. Just a pity there's only one bracelet. I'm afraid sister doesn't have the fortune to receive it. In my jewelry vault, I had a raw Emperor's green jade block as tall as half a person. Yet she treasured this tiny bracelet like a precious thing. I stopped, grabbed her wrist, and placed her hand on my chest. She startled and cried out, "Sister, are you trying to snatch it? I also want to give it to sister, but this was gifted by the Empress. If sister takes it, I'm afraid the Empress won't be happy." I smiled faintly, speaking softly, "Grace, you're truly stupid. Let me teach you a lesson the wise know how to hide, the foolish love to show off." "What do you mean?" Grace was stunned for a moment. While she was dazed, I fell backward, pretending she had pushed me into the pond. When I opened my eyes, I had returned to the manor. It wasn't me who pushed her. She fell in herself. Grace knelt on the ground, revealing her slender fair neck, tears rolling down as she grabbed father's robe. But all the noble ladies and maids present could testify, she had provoked me first, then pushed me into the pond. Mother's eyes reddened as she ordered 2 nannies to hold her tightly, then stepped forward and slapped her hard several times. "If my daughter doesn't wake up, the first one I'll kill to bury with her is you." Grace's beautiful face immediately bore several bright red handprints. She cast a pleading look toward father, but his eyes held only disappointment. Her face paled, her body swaying as if about to collapse at any moment. I could even imagine the scene. If not for the crown prince and father protecting her, she would have been sent to the Ministry of Justice instead of kneeling here, enduring mother's wrath and scolding. This was the lesson I taught her. I had thousands of ways to use her to achieve my goals. Because in this life, she was no longer like the previous life where she was killed by someone sent by the Emperor after mother caused chaos in court. They used her death to frame mother for loving her daughter too much and making mistakes. This life, I could turn her into a tool to reclaim all the assets from father's hands. If not for investigating the close relationship between father and the crown prince, I might never have guessed the truth behind mother's and my tragic deaths in the previous life. It was a conspiracy constructed by father himself and the Emperor. They used Grace's death to stimulate Marcus into marrying me, actually to gradually encroach on mother's power. When mother's power completely fell into the Emperor's and Marcus's hands, we lost our value. They then killed us. The late Emperor once said that if mother were a man, this empire would belong to her. Just because of that one sentence, though mother never intended to rebel against the court, the Emperor still remained wary of her. How can one allow others to sleep soundly beside the throne? Father was the Emperor's most loyal blade. Just because mother condescended to marry him, breaking up his fated match with Grace's mother. When Grace's mother gave birth to her, she died from difficult labor. At that time, father was touring the lake with mother admiring spring, not even getting to see her one last time. He hated mother, believing that if she hadn't forced him to go touring, Grace's mother wouldn't have died. Though sharing bed and pillow, he harbored resentment day and night, even wishing he could kill her. Father didn't love mother, nor did he love me. He didn't even truly love Grace. He only loved that gentle woman like a white lotus in his memories. After falling into the pond, my body was injured. During autumn in the imperial city, with strong winds, the physician suggested I go to the southern city to recuperate. Father initially disagreed, but I shed a few tears, and with mother by my side, he had to concede. However, he set the condition that those caring for me must be personally selected by him, outwardly for my benefit, but actually to secretly monitor me. The day I departed, father went to morning court and hadn't returned. Grace persistently claimed innocence and refused to see me off. Mother tightly grasped my hand, her eyes gradually misting. Victoria, you've suffered so much these past days. Mother is truly useless, unable to protect you. I gently wiped her tears, embracing her. Mother is the best mother in the world. Victoria is truly fortunate to have a mother like you. This trip will be at least half a year, at most 1 or 2 years. I must trouble mother with minor affairs. Mother just needs to remember what I told you yesterday. Whether before father or at court, if you can avoid anger, don't be angry. Endure and wait for Victoria's return. My trip wasn't just to heal but to prepare for future confrontation with the Son of Heaven. In this dynasty, no woman had ever claimed the throne, just because the world believed women should stay in the inner quarters, serving husbands and teaching children. They thought women should be like canaries in cages, feet bound with golden chains. When happy, they opened the cage to let the bird fly a bit. When unhappy, they cut off food, smash the cage, even clip wings and strangle the bird. Even someone of mother's noble status, though she was the first female official in court history, she only received 1 sentence from the late emperor. If you were a man. Yet she still had to be forced to marry someone who didn't love her like all other women, even having to endure the emperor's wariness and schemes from her own bedmate daily. Just because she had taken power from their hands. But in this world, those with talent deserve to hold power. If they can sit on the throne, why can't we? During 2 years in Southern City, I cleverly evaded all of father's surveillance. With lightning speed, I seized all assets, both hidden and public, that father possessed. Even the properties he'd given Grace, I destroyed completely. Simultaneously, I secretly accumulated grain, forged weapons, and cultivated talent. On mother's side, she used her status as elder princess to lead irrigation projects, expand cultivation, establish academies and schools. The emperor began to panic. I returned to the imperial city. Mother held a banquet inviting guests from all directions. The empress also came to congratulate, bringing an imperial decree establishing Grace as crown princess and selecting a wedding date. The empress's face glowed like spring. Victoria, you're a good girl, growing up with Marcus since childhood. But it's truly a pity that you two couldn't reach the end together. Now you're also of age, and Marcus is after all the crown prince. I think you surely understand this, don't you? Understand? Why wouldn't I understand? She wanted to use the banquet to make mother wary while keeping a good reputation for herself. Her meaning was that her son was noble while I wasn't worthy. But how could it be so easy? Mother didn't let the empress ruin the banquet and harbor resentment. Instead, she still smiled radiantly. Imperial sister-in-law speaks incorrectly. Victoria and Marcus grew up together. Naturally, she hopes for his well-being. Those without fortune cannot stay in fortunate places. I'm also happy for him seeing the crown prince finally united with his beloved. The empress showed a hint of doubt, not understanding why mother maintained a smiling face and appeared as intimate as sisters despite such provocation. The empress was pulled away by mother before she could react. Before leaving, mother turned and raised an eyebrow at me, her eyes full of mocking laughter, as if saying, "Victoria, didn't mother do well?" But only I knew the next sentence mother intended to say was, "The fortunate don't enter temples, the unfortunate enter the imperial chambers." After the banquet, the drama continued. That evening, Grace again led a crowd surging to my main courtyard. Now that she'd been decreed crown princess by the emperor, her status was no longer as before. Her residence had been upgraded according to her position, with double the maids and nannies. As soon as she arrived, she demanded I kneel and leave. I just smiled, saying that after 2 years apart she still hadn't matured. Oh, but that wasn't entirely true, she had made some progress. I had seized all her assets, leaving her not a penny, forcing her to secretly sell my belongings. A nanny beside me laughed coldly, speaking bluntly, "Second miss is truly too arrogant. Who among the noble families doesn't know our princess was born with the entire manor bathed in red light, 24 phoenixes circling the roof for 12 hours. She who was blessed by the world, His Majesty specially decreed our princess need only kneel to heaven, earth, and birth parents. No one else deserves her kneeling. Let alone second miss who's just a crown princess who hasn't even married yet. Grace's face flushed red with anger. She furiously slapped the nanny. When this crown princess speaks, how dare a slave like you interrupt? The servants of Princess Wellington truly have no manners. The nanny looked at me grievously, but when meeting my gaze, she immediately trembled and knelt, begging, "Princess, spare my life." Grace's face briefly showed satisfaction. Servants don't understand matters. I'm teaching them for sister. Sister won't blame me, will you? I waved my hand lightly, smiling faintly. But the next second, Grace was firmly held down by 2 strong nannies. "What are you doing? Release me. I am the crown princess." The 2 nannies said nothing, just straightforwardly slapping her face, left then right, so fast that beautiful face swelled like a pig's head. I smiled slightly, stepping forward slowly. Little sister truly doesn't know her place. Have you forgotten the lesson from 2 years ago? As sisters, half the blood flowing in our veins is the same. Oh, as your elder sister, teaching an ignorant little sister like you is only proper. I paused, looking straight at her swollen red face, my voice gentle but full of mockery. Actually, these slaps should have been delivered by me, your elder sister, personally teaching you. But you personally taught the servants yourself. That must mean you've placed yourself on their level. Then let the servants teach you properly on my behalf. I beat Grace and threatened that if she didn't behave obediently, I would cut her hair so she couldn't marry. As a result, she panicked, face drained of color, crying as she ran to find Marcus. The next day, from early morning, Marcus stood in my courtyard pointing and shouting, "Victoria Liu, you've gone too far. Grace is my future wife, how dare you hit her? Do you still have any regard for this crown prince?" I hadn't seen him for 2 years. Without me in the imperial city, he had indeed become much more unbridled. He dared use this tone to speak with me. Had he forgotten? When we were young studying under the Grand Tutor, every time he bullied other young lords, who was it that grabbed his collar and beat him half to death? Yet I wasn't surprised. In my previous life, Mother and I died tragically at the manor by his hand. That sufficiently proved his nature was inherently domineering and vicious. Only because he feared Mother did he pretend to be docile before her. I properly invited him into the courtyard. He thought I feared him and immediately showed contempt, even arrogantly ordering me to pour tea. I picked up the tea tray, poured a cup of cold tea, then without hesitation splashed it straight on his head. "You haven't even married yet, and I'm teaching my little sister. Does Your Highness the Crown Prince also want to interfere? Or do you want to go with me to Lotus Hall to seek an audience with Uncle and ask who's right and wrong? Uncle is the son of heaven himself and finds it inconvenient to meddle in the inner quarters of his subjects. Could Your Highness the Crown Prince be more powerful than the Son of Heaven?" I looked at him with a slight sneer, my tone mocking but sharp. "Just you, worthy of me pouring tea. Your head only has this much water, not even enough to keep a fish alive, yet you want me to serve you." Marcus couldn't refute me. Angry, he left intending to find Grace to vent. I immediately ordered people to stuff rags in his mouth and put him in a palanquin, heading straight from my courtyard's main gate toward the palace. He didn't even get to see Grace's face. Father had just finished court and hurriedly came to find me. But by now, the story of Marcus barging into a maiden's chamber for love had spread throughout the imperial city, causing an uproar. "Victoria, you were too reckless. The crown prince scolded you a few words for Grace. You should have just endured it. Why cause trouble to the point of affecting your own reputation?" I blinked, unable to believe these words came from Father's own mouth. Tears of grievance flowed. "Father, you clearly know why I disciplined my sister. 2 years ago, she stole my betrothed and pushed me into water. I had to recuperate for 2 years to recover slightly. Yet when I just returned, she wanted to drive me from my courtyard. I just couldn't bear it anymore. But Grace is the future crown princess. By doing this, have you considered how Father will face His Majesty, the Empress, and all the civil and military officials? Since I secretly seized all Father's assets, Marcus no longer received any benefits from him. Their relationship had become distant. Without Grace, perhaps Marcus would have long ago abandoned him at court. Mother's people openly and secretly pressured him. Though the emperor tried to protect him, many flaws were still exposed. His official career was facing difficulties. Now he seemed to have placed all his hopes on Grace. Seeing me cause trouble with Marcus, he wished he could kill me on the spot. I tried to suppress my heartache, lowering my voice to admit fault and show submission. Only then was he temporarily satisfied, leaving to find Grace. Watching his figure disappear, I silently calculated the day of his death. Currently it was harvest season. According to memories from my previous life, in half a month, northern enemies would descend on the borders to plunder. A month later, elite northern enemy troops would directly attack the border defenses, officially starting war between the two countries. In my previous life, the front lines were deadlocked, the national treasury depleted, provisions couldn't be transported in time, soldiers' morale declined, and battles were repeatedly lost. When consulting the court, it turned out no one dared take responsibility. When everyone feared death, Mother, with her female status, personally escorted provisions and led troops to battle, exchanging for 100 years of peace for Great Ung. But in the end, she was imprisoned by Marcus on charges of harming the crown prince and colluding with enemies to betray the country. This life, I would personally put Marcus in a dilemma. He would have to choose between beauty or the empire. Starting from when Marcus came to my courtyard, Grace had been quiet for several days. She didn't cause trouble with me, nor did she go find the crown prince or father to complain. Today, while I was reading in the long corridor, someone sent by Mother reported, "Princess, the elder princess just received a blood-red jade stone and wants you to come see what jewelry should be made." When I accidentally glanced around the corridor bend and saw a glimpse of pink, blue clothing, I paused slightly. Blood-red jade was extremely rare. Where did it come from? It's tribute from the western regions. The Empress had someone deliver it, saying it was to apologize on behalf of the crown prince. I nodded. How convenient. Mother's bracelet broke a few days ago. This blood-red jade could be made into a new bracelet for her. When I returned to my book, it had disappeared. I asked the maids, "Have any of you seen my book?" They all shook their heads. I sighed lightly. Oh well, if it's lost, it's lost. It was just a story about playing with fire before nobles. Some servant must have seen it and taken it. Half a month later, as expected, war approached. But Mother suddenly collapsed at Lotus Hall. Once she lay down, she couldn't get up for 2 whole months. The front lines continuously sent urgent reports. The situation was extremely critical. The emperor worried to the point of sleepless nights, often staying in the imperial study thinking all night. The empress came to see me every few days asking, "Victoria, is your mother's illness truly that serious?" I stayed by Mother's bedside day and night without rest, my face pallid, eyes sunken deep. Mother once went to battle and killed enemies. Her body was wounded. Now with autumn winds, old wounds are acting up with pain. The physician said she needs careful rest. Without 3 to 5 years, she cannot recover. Hearing this, the empress's face was full of gloom as she left in contemplation. After she left, Mother opened her eyes and exchanged glances with me. How laughable. The emperor was truly a cowardly and hypocritical person to the extreme. Ordinarily he feared Mother's high-mints overshadowing him, always finding ways to restrain her. Now with border troubles, he hoped she would immediately risk her life for him. Not only that, he didn't dare speak up himself, fearing loss of face before officials and citizens, so he sent the empress to probe for information, using her hand to investigate the situation. Truly both caring about face while being cowardly and useless, no one surpasses him. Marcus was even more useless. Upon hearing of successive defeats at the front, he immediately sought to ally with civil officials, fearing someone with grudges against him would push him to the battlefield. But the citizens couldn't endure the court's deadlock. Groups of people knelt before the palace gates, begging the Son of Heaven to personally lead the army. The emperor was forced to use the excuse that the country couldn't be without a ruler for a day, pushing Marcus forward. The emperor's cowardice, fear of death, yet desire to maintain a good reputation was displayed without any concealment. The empress, worried for her son, went on hunger strike without eating or drinking, kneeling before the hall crying for 3 days, yet couldn't move the emperor's decision. On the day of departure, citizens crowded both sides of the road to send them off. At the city gates, Grace threw herself into Marcus's arms, crying so hard she nearly choked. "Your Highness, you must return safely." Marcus tenderly lowered his head to gently coax her. "I will return. Grace, wait for me to return triumphant. I'll definitely have you wear the phoenix crown and red wedding robes to marry you." The 10-mile send-off scene was tragically moving, making people emotional. But as soon as she turned away, Grace changed into men's clothing and secretly followed. Before departing, she brought a small bag, stopping by my courtyard to boast. "Sister, you'd rather sacrifice your reputation to bind yourself to His Highness the Crown Prince, but you still couldn't win against me. His Highness said that away from me for even one day, he cannot live. Now I must go find His Highness." It was truly laughable, even at this point. She didn't forget to come to my courtyard to cause trouble. But I was still her elder sister after all. Advice that should be given still had to be given. Military camps are places women cannot casually enter. Have you thought this through carefully? Being able to see one's beloved was always a happy thing, and Grace was no exception. Her beautiful face was full of anticipation. "Sister needn't worry. His Highness the Crown Prince has already made arrangements." Seeing I couldn't dissuade her, I kindly had someone bring a set of golden armor. But she didn't even look at it, throwing it directly on the ground. "Thank you, sister, but it's not needed. His Highness will protect me completely. What a pity sister doesn't have such fortune as I do." I had someone pick up the armor and put it away. The most foolish women are those who tie their entire future to one man. Men are the most fickle creatures. When in love they can pluck stars from the sky. When they hate they can cut flesh and remove bones from the person they once swore to love forever. They're hypocritical, they're deceitful, they're two-faced and treacherous. They can even exploit those closest to them. The emperor exploited the empress's stupidity to deal with mother. Father exploited the daughter born from the woman he loved to oppose mother. Marcus endured for years, ultimately using a knife to cut my bones while pushing mother to an agonizing death on a copper pillar. At life or death moments, how could Marcus willingly block a blade for Grace? I had warned her countless times, but fine words are hard to heed, demons seeking death. I could only pray she survived to return. To live and clearly see with her own eyes what a detestable face the man she so loved truly had. However, Grace's departure completely disrupted Father's plans. He had originally intended to use Grace's hand, while Mother was seriously ill, to infiltrate influence into the rear quarters of major clans, gradually weakening Mother's influence. Once controlling the rear quarters, Marcus would grasp court power, then take that opportunity to eliminate Mother. At that time, both avenging the person in his heart and escaping Mother's oppressive shadow for life. But at this crucial moment, Grace left. Meanwhile, Mother's illness improved. She could even get out of bed and walk. Father was troubled but couldn't show it, only forcing down his emotions. He smiled amiably, accepting the medicine bowl from my hands, his eyes full of concern. "Madam must recover quickly. This husband still hopes to ride horses touring with you." Looking at him, anyone would think Father was a model husband. But the fingers supporting the bottom of the medicine bowl were bone, white, just revealing his inner anxiety. Mother drank the medicine from his hand, casually mentioning the rare treasures in my courtyard. "In a moment it will be Victoria's birthday. Thinking of the gifts piling up in that child's courtyard, I'm afraid it soon won't hold them all. In 2 days, call someone to inventory them, then move to a bigger place." Father's expression briefly stiffened. Though he tried to hide it, he still revealed some panic. "That courtyard is already the largest in the manor. If we change locations, we'd only have to move everything to Victoria's main courtyard. Or maybe forget it. No need to change." Mother took a light sip of medicine, the corner of her lips curving up as if she hadn't noticed anything. But when her gaze swept over me, it was full of casual laughter, as if saying, "Look child, he's only capable of this much." That small courtyard had quite a few valuable items taken and sold by Grace. Most of the money went to Father. Father used all that money to provide for Marcus. If we inventory now and the list doesn't match reality, Mother would definitely investigate thoroughly. How could she let it go? As Victoria, even his daughter. If the manor can't hold it, couldn't places outside the manor hold it? Isn't there still an empty courtyard on Liming Alley? Why not have people clean it up and move Victoria's things there? No. Father immediately objected. Realizing his slip, he forced a smile. That place has complex crowds. If someone jealous spies on her, what then? How about I have people dig more in the current courtyard to expand it a bit? But that explanation wasn't enough to convince Mother. This won't work, that won't work either. You truly are useless. If the royal manor can't hold it, might as well move everything to the princess's manor. For a man, being called useless meant resentment had accumulated to the extreme. That evening, in Mother's medicine bowl, poison mysteriously appeared. Mother poured the medicine into a flower pot, her eyes vacant as she watched the liquid flow down. He truly wants me dead that badly. I sighed lightly, my voice gentle. Woman wasting effort over men is the most foolish thing. In my previous life, I died once. Father fell ill from poison. Mother flew into a rage, causing chaos at the Ministry of Justice, demanding they find the culprit within half a month. Otherwise, she would go to Lotus Hall to cry injustice. The Minister of Justice was so frightened he didn't dare raise his head. Before finding the culprit, they accidentally discovered Grace had been secretly selling treasures from my courtyard and giving money to Father for smuggling and weapons. Major crimes punishable by extermination of 9 generations. Following the trail led to murky connections with Marcus. No one could understand, the current emperor only had Marcus as his son. The entire Great Ung would be his in the future. So why would he commit such treasonous acts? But now Marcus was at the border fighting northern enemies, so they could only temporarily imprison Father. Mother aged 10 years overnight. She wore simple white clothes, using the female imperial command token bestowed by the late emperor to exchange for Grace, asking the emperor to spare Father's life. The emperor agreed. The female command token symbolized Mother's court status, glory she had carried for decades. The day Father was released from prison, Mother wore the same clothes from when she first met Father. Time passes too quickly. In a blink we've been married so many years. Decades can't defeat time. I've also gone from a fresh young girl to an old woman. I pinned a golden hairpin in her bun, looking through the bronze mirror at the wrinkles at the corners of her eyes. Decades can't defeat beauty. Mother is still as beautiful as ever. She smiled, gently tapping my forehead. Your mouth is sweet as honey. Mother laughed heartily, seeming in very good spirits. Who could think she was once called the #1 beauty of Great Ung, once treasured by the late emperor? Father was dragged from prison with white hair, his body full of wounds with no intact spot. But when he saw Mother, his eyes shone with a layer of sorrow. Madam, I was wronged. Mother smiled gently, nodding slightly. I know. Father's eyes immediately brightened. You believe me, I truly was wronged. Go see His Majesty quickly. Tell him I've never had a disloyal heart. Mother just shook her head gently, asking an unrelated question. On March 12th of the 36th year of Yuanjia, I followed the Empress Dowager to Peach Blossom Mountain to worship Buddha and was attacked by assassins. You blocked a sword strike for me. Was that arranged by you? Father's face paled as if remembering something, his voice becoming panicked. Listen to me explain. Mother shook her head, cutting him off. I don't need explanations. I just want you to answer yes or no. Father trembled, crawling toward her, his voice breaking. Madam, listen to me, I had my difficulties. Mother sighed, her eyes full of regret. I already gave you a chance. After speaking, she turned and left, her robes sweeping past like cutting all ties. I lowered my head, my gaze just meeting Father's pleading look. He was like a dog with no dignity left, desperately begging. Victoria, for the sake of our 18 years as father and daughter, please plead with your mother for me. I stepped back half a pace, my voice cold. When you poisoned Mother, Father surely knew this day would come. Father's expression changed immediately. He glared at me, his eyes full of hatred. Indeed, you're something born from that power, hungry woman's belly. Cut from the same cloth as your mother. I should never have kept you from the start. His words alluded to when I was 7, bitten by a venomous snake. That day Mother and Father had argued fiercely, though I didn't know why. As the sun set, I was alone in the courtyard picking peonies. I thought if I picked some beautiful ones, Father could use them to make peace with Mother. When I just picked the third peony, a venomous snake crawled up and wrapped around my leg. The servants who should have been beside me had all disappeared. I cried in terror until I nearly choked. Just then, Father appeared. He sucked the poison out with his mouth, then called physicians to treat me. At that time, I believed Father was my protector, my hero. But I never thought he was the one who had released that venomous snake. Children are born naturally loving their parents. But some parents don't love their children at all. They only love themselves. I locked father in the firewood room, giving him only a wooden bed with straw and a broken bowl for leftover food like pig slop. After half a month of struggling in misery, he was finally near death. I covered my nose and pushed open the firewood room door. The stench from inside made one nauseous. Mother sent me to ask father if he knew his wrongs. Father lay on the wooden bed, breathing weakly, but his eyes still full of resentment. I was silent for a moment, then continued speaking to myself. Perhaps father doesn't think he's wrong. You're best at blaming others, how could you admit your own mistakes? I stepped slowly around the bed, finally stopping before him. Swearing to one person you'd never betray her for life, while craving mother's power. Having affairs with your beloved while pretending gentle affection toward mother. Father, not becoming an actor is truly a waste. Years of perfect performance even made mother deeply trust you. Father opened his mouth to say something, but I quickly stuffed my handkerchief into his mouth with disgust. Stop, don't say anything more. I know you'll say it was the late emperor who decreed mother's marriage to you, that you were forced. That if mother hadn't insisted on marrying you, you'd have long ago married your beloved. Everything is mother's fault, right? She made you and your beloved separated by life and death, didn't she? I lowered my eyes, cold as ice. But mother gave you many chances. It was you who were too greedy, wanting both. You're the one who killed the person you loved. I paused, pulling out the handkerchief, my voice gentle but full of mockery. Mother is soft-hearted. She said that after being married to you for decades, even though you betrayed and harmed her, she can't bear to see you suffer like this. So she sent me here to see you off on your final journey. Oh right. I made an expression as if just remembering something, saying with surprise, I forgot to tell father, all the assets in your hands have been taken by me. After all, father once said your things would eventually be mine anyway, so taking them early makes no difference. Father, gagged with the handkerchief, could only struggle and make unclear sounds. I glanced at him indifferently and walked out of the room, instructing the servants. The weather has been very dry lately. Remember to be careful not to let any fires break out in the manor. Looking up at the clear blue sky, I sighed softly. I wonder how the funeral oration has been prepared. Behind me, fierce flames erupted, red light illuminating the entire sky, but no one dared step forward to fight the fire. Father died unceremoniously. Mother observed mourning and didn't go out. During this time, a major incident occurred at the front lines. Marcus, to make Grace happy, repeatedly burned the beacon towers. Beacons were emergency signals for enemy attacks, used to warn of danger. Soldiers seeing the beacons ablaze thought northern enemies had breached defenses and hurriedly brought troops to respond. But arriving, they only saw Marcus and Grace playing instruments and dancing on the city walls. When the defense line was truly breached by northern enemies and Marcus lit the beacons, not a single person came to help. As a result, northern enemies consecutively captured 5 cities. Soldier morale fell to unprecedented lows. Both inside and outside the court were shaken. Marcus and Grace suffered terrible defeat. While fleeing and enduring open-air conditions, they finally escaped back to the imperial city. Upon entering the city, both were immediately arrested. As army commander, the charge of desertion during command was the greatest taboo. At Lotus Hall, Marcus prostrated himself, tears and snot flowing as he cried, Father Emperor, your clear judgment. It was all because this despicable person bewitched me. She forced me to burn the beacon towers. I was just bewitched by her. She's a fox spirit reincarnated. Grace, bound tightly, was exhausted, her eyes full of despair. Look, these irresponsible men. Though their mouths always say they love you, at life or death moments they'll still abandon you for their own lives. Love cannot overcome human selfish nature. This is reality. In my previous life, the Emperor killed Grace while Marcus hated Mother to the bone. But this life, he personally pushed Grace onto the execution platform. Besides himself, he had no one left to blame or resent. On execution day, I went to the imperial prison to see Grace. She who was once a delicate beauty now huddled like an old woman with no grace left. You came to mock me, didn't you, Victoria Liu? I admit you won. Everything he said about loving me was false, all lies. I smiled lightly, my voice soft as a breeze. I did want to laugh at you for being stupid without knowing it, but I also pity you. You schemed, you fought, because from childhood that's all you were taught. I placed a small piece of lambskin in her hand, speaking coldly. You can choose to continue living or choose a death without dignity. In another hour, if you choose to live, then next time we meet, I'll give you the chance to kill Marcus with your own hands. Grace trembled, clutching the lambskin as if it were her last salvation. Her eyes full of hatred stared toward the eastern palace like a hungry wolf. I want to live. I want to kill him with my own hands. Why do you want to help me? I smiled faintly, running my finger across the back of her hand, my voice full of contempt. Consider it your elder sister showing you some pity. Not long after, though Mother's body was still ill, she personally escorted provisions and led troops to the front lines. The first battle was a great victory. The emperor took the opportunity to decree annulling the engagement and re-establishing the marriage between Marcus and me to show imperial grace. On the wedding day, Mother still hadn't returned. After much thought, I understood the emperor's intention. He saw me as a hostage, using me to warn Mother that I was in his hands, so she shouldn't dare act presumptuously or maintain private troops. To control me, he poisoned me daily with chronic toxins. But I returned it all to Marcus with interest, plus some sulfur. During my 2 years in Southern City, Mother found dozens of girls with appearances similar to Grace and brought them to the manor. During the day, Marcus indulged in drinking with them. But late at night, he faced those Grace-like faces, cursing and screaming in madness. Gradually, those nightmares clung to him. His body deteriorated to disability, unable to even make any woman pregnant. After Marcus was deposed from his crown prince position, the emperor completely abandoned him, turning instead to consolidate the imperial family by frantically taking consorts. The empress naturally disagreed. She cried and caused chaos at court like a jealous woman. Before long, she was banished to the cold palace, ending her days at the peak of power. Seeing Marcus had been worn down by arsenic to the point of no resistance, I decided to bring people to force the palace. The court ministers had long been dissatisfied with the emperor's unfairness and favoritism. Very quickly, they turned to support me. At Lotus Hall, the emperor frantically grabbed a young palace maid about 11 or 12 years old, using her as a shield, looking chaotic and panicked. I recognized early that you mother and daughter are both greedy wolves who don't know your place. In the shadows, archers had drawn their bows awaiting orders to fire. I wore dragon robes, stepping forward step by step, my eyes full of mockery. Uncle, those words are truly mistaken. That we've reached this point today, wasn't it you who forced me? You ask these ministers present, under your rule, who doesn't work in fear. I smiled faintly, my tone casual but sharp. In the 3rd year of Yangtze, Jiangnan flooded. Ministers offered strategies but you stubbornly postponed again and again, turning natural disaster into human catastrophe. You angrily blamed everything on them, killing 100 ministers in one day. In the 10th year of Yuanxing, you and the empress traveled incognito to Minzhou. Just because the local magistrate didn't recognize you too, you decreed heavy taxes for 5 years. Minzhou lacked food, citizens starved to death filling the roads, even in harvest years. 3 years later, Marcus killed someone in a dispute over a courtesan. You only gave light punishment, 1 month house arrest. Do you know who he killed? It was the Grand Tutor's only son. Every single incident made people resent you. If not for Mother working hard for you, Great Ung would have long ago erupted in rebellion, splitting into 5 or 7 parts. You're incompetent and can't distinguish right from wrong, yet always suspect and guard against Mother. What qualifications do you have to be emperor? The abdication proceeded very smoothly. I established Marcus on the throne while I ruled from behind the curtain. The grain I'd accumulated was all transported to the front lines. The weapons forged had reached the soldiers' hands. The talents I'd secretly cultivated successively entered court and civilian positions. They handled evil, did practical work, sought welfare for the people. In less than 3 years, Mother had pushed the northern enemies back to frigid, harsh lands where they could only survive with difficulty. When Mother returned triumphant, I stood before the tall city gates, loudly proclaiming, "Welcome the Grand Emperor's triumphant return." I had changed to follow Mother's surname. Now I was emperor, naturally Mother was the Grand Emperor. As for that useless Marcus, he'd already had his throat pierced by Grace's sword. His corpse was unclear which wild dogs at the mass grave had eaten clean. Mother asked why I let Grace kill Marcus. I frowned slightly, answering softly, "Afraid of dirtying my hands." Watching dogs bite each other is more interesting anyway. Postscript: I am Grace, the illegitimate daughter of Wellington Lord. After my mother passed, I lived depending on my wet nurse, Nanny Kin. When other children could act spoiled in their parents' arms, I hadn't even seen my father's face. Nanny Kin was a short, fat woman. She often told stories about my parents' love like a fairy tale. But at night, she would point at my mother's memorial tablet and curse. You truly were foolish. You couldn't even keep a man's heart. You died and left me with this debt. What previous life's sin did I commit to raise you once, and now have to raise your unlucky child too? If you knew when alive how to lower yourself and keep the Lord's heart, how would Grace and I be living in this broken room without even meat to eat? Each time she scolded, she cried and ground her teeth. When I was 4, Father finally appeared. He looked exactly like Mother's portrait, tall, refined, gentle. But when he bent to pat my head, his eyes were indifferent. Just like how Nanny Kin picked vegetables at the morning market. I fearfully hid behind Nanny Kin. Father looked at me for a while, then his eyes showed disappointment. He turned and left. Right after he left, Nanny Kin angrily pinched my hand hard. Smile. Call him father. If you don't know how to make him happy, how can we live well? Nanny Kin squeezed hard. I cried from pain. Others said their fathers carried them daily telling fairy tales. They said their fathers brought sweet, sour candied haws after work. But why didn't my father take me with him? Was it because I wasn't good enough? The next time Father returned, I had learned to curve my lips in a bright smile. I learned to open my tear-filled eyes wide and sweetly ask him, Father, are you unhappy today? From then on, life for Nanny Kin and me indeed became easier. Nanny Kin said I was like a talking flower. She taught, Grace, remember well, all men in the world are the same. We women can only live depending on them. To live well, we must abandon self-respect, must lower ourselves. Whatever men want, we must give them that. I took Nanny Kin's words as my life's compass, trying even harder to please Father. When I was 7, I first met Father's other daughter. She was Great Ung's only princess, cherished in everyone's palms since childhood. She rode horses freely through streets, eliminating evil and helping citizens. Seeing her like that, I realized I was just an illegitimate child not worth putting on the scales. My mother wasn't even Father's official concubine. When Father returned, I cried asking him, why? He looked at me with eyes like he was looking at someone else. I thought perhaps he was remembering my mother. He said he was only pretending to associate with them. His heart only had my mother. They were wolves and tigers who separated him and my mother. They forced him to marry the princess, then forced my mother to death. They were the world's most vicious women. I must see them as enemies my whole life, I told Nanny Kin. She rarely stayed silent for a long time, then sighed, Grace, some people, some things fight if you can fight, if you can't fight then let go. Afterward, Father brought me to meet the Crown Prince. First encountering power, I realized that Victoria Lu's so-called reputation was merely relying on the Emperor's favor to do as she pleased. So I had to cling tightly to the Crown Prince. I wanted to be Empress. I wanted to stand beside the world's most noble man. But I overestimated myself. I was eager to prove the Crown Prince's love for me before Victoria. But she never put me in her eyes. She mocked me, despised me, trampled me into the mud. When I killed the Crown Prince with one sword strike, fresh blood staining my entire dress, she stood there, coldly watching me, then said, killing is very difficult, isn't it? Not relying on men is even harder than killing. I looked up at her and asked, she clearly could have killed him herself, why give this opportunity to me? She sneered, her voice full of contempt, his filthy blood doesn't deserve to dirty my hands. So only someone as filthy as me deserved to do this. Even revenge was her charity to me. I would never, ever be able to compare to her. The next time I opened my eyes, I discovered I had been reborn. Returned to the exact day Father told me to seduce the Crown Prince. I immediately struggled free from the Crown Prince's embrace, screaming loudly, help, impropriety, help. Then I rushed straight into Victoria Lu's arms, tears streaming. Sister, save me. If you enjoyed this, please give Panda Tale a like and don't forget to follow for more new stories. This story reveals how societal expectations and power structures can corrupt even the purest relationships. Victoria's journey teaches us that true strength doesn't come from manipulating others or seeking revenge, but from breaking free of predetermined roles. When women are taught to depend entirely on men for survival, like Grace was, they become prisoners of a system that ultimately destroys them. The cycle of betrayal between fathers, daughters, emperors, and princes shows how power corrupts absolutely. Victoria's transformation from victim to emperor demonstrates that real change requires not just seizing power, but fundamentally restructuring the system itself. The most tragic lesson is Grace's realization that even in rebirth, she remains trapped by the same societal constraints, until she finally chooses her own path over survival through men.